Okay, moving on to the next segment of today's show, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Los Angeles Charger Kansas City Chief game from Sunday. And as we know, the Chiefs came away with an overtime victory as Harrison Butker kicked the game-winning field goal in overtime as the Chiefs won. But we've spoke a lot about the Chiefs on this podcast over the last couple weeks. So today, I want to talk about the Los Angeles Chargers and more specifically what exactly their situation is at quarterback. And basically, if you missed the game, what happened was going into the game, everyone expected Tyrod Taylor to be the starting quarterback for the Los Angeles Chargers, not Justin Herbert, who the Chargers took with the number 6 overall pick from the University of Oregon. And Justin Herbert, watching him play yesterday, I think he looked ready to play. And the thing for me is this. If you're Anthony Lynn and you're asked after the game, who is your starting quarterback next week? What exactly is the future of this quarterback position for the season in LA? And I think if you were Anthony Lynn in that situation, right, the credible answer would be, I'm just not ready to commit to anything right now. We'll see what Tyrod Taylor's injury status is for next week, and we'll handle it from there. That's basically all you have to say. It's a fastball down the middle in batting practice. And instead, Anthony Lynn says, if Tyrod Taylor is 100% healthy, he is our quarterback. And for me, I just don't know how you could watch that Chiefs-Charger game and come up with that statement, just so cutthroat and just, I'm not saying Anthony Lynn, was mean to the reporter or kind of just acted like the reporter was crazy for asking if they wanted a change at quarterback, but I think you could kind of just tell he was not ready at all to commit to Justin Herbert being the quarterback for the upcoming season, for the rest of the season, I should say. And for me, I really disagree with that decision. I think Justin Herbert did enough in that Kansas City Chief game to prove that he could be the starting quarterback here long term. And even if Justin Herbert didn't do that, and even if Justin Herbert wasn't great, or when you watched Justin Herbert and you evaluated him and his play on Sunday, even if you thought, oh, there's a bunch of things he could clean up, he is a rookie. And that's supposed to happen. And my thing is this. If you're Anthony Lynn, you're the coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, these guys just moved into a new stadium. They are doing whatever they can to attract fans and get, people to start being interested in the Los Angeles Chargers. And for me, I just don't think that's possible, especially, this season, if Tyrod Taylor is your guy. I think a lot of people watched the Charger-Bengal game in week 1, right? And even though the Chargers were able to come away with a victory, I think a lot of people watched that game and basically just said to themselves, wow, these are just the same old Chargers. They have a bunch of talent, but they didn't look good at all. And if Randy Bullock makes that kick, the Bengals easily could have won. And I don't think a lot of people were really thinking that positively about the LA Chargers following their week 1 performance. I don't want to say Tyrod Taylor was bad, but he wasn't good. Nothing really stood out. And I think if the Chargers stick with Tyrod as their quarterback, their ceiling is like a 6 to 7 win team just because he's not dynamic enough. So the story around the Chargers went from after that week 1 game that, wow, this team is so boring. They're not exciting. They almost lost to the Cincinnati Bengals. What are we doing here? And then on Thursday Night Football, the Bengals go out and play the Browns. And even though they lost, Joe Burrow still was able to swing the ball all around the field. So after that game, I think a lot of people were feeling pretty positive, especially with the way the Chargers defense was able to perform. We know the amount of talent that there is on this defensive unit of the Chargers. When you look at Melvin Ingram, Joey Bosa, the kid Jerry Tillery from Notre Dame that played absolutely phenomenal yesterday. So the narrative coming out of the Bengal-Brown game on Thursday night for most Charger fans were probably, wow, this defense is pretty good. Tyrod Taylor isn't a very good quarterback, but we're still going to play him because Justin Herbert, he's a youngster from Oregon. We just don't necessarily know if he's ready yet. And you are basing that statement on, you don't know if he's ready yet. You are basing that statement on basically everything you've seen from him throughout his college career. But here's my thing. No matter where you stood about this situation in the preseason, right? Whether you wanted Justin Herbert to play or not, I just don't understand how you could come out here and say right now that Tyrod Taylor should be the starting quarterback of the Los Angeles Chargers. Because this kid, Justin Herbert, was thrown into the fold with 5 minutes before the game, apparently, according to Anthony Lynn. 5 minutes before the game, it's determined, all right, Tyrod Taylor can't play. They did have a third quarterback dressed, but I think the Chargers did know that something was up with their starting quarterback, and they did have to make another quarterback active. I don't know how exactly you hurt your ribs as a quarterback in pregame warmups, but that doesn't matter. Somehow Tyrod Taylor got hurt, and 5 minutes before the game, Justin Herbert is told that he's going to be the starting quarterback. And keep in mind also, this is not a kid that was just a random third-round pick. This is a kid that the LA Chargers really invested a lot in. This is a kid that they took with a top 10 pick. And I just think that when you look at this LA Charger team and you look at the exact situation that Justin Herbert was in at Oregon and you look at the exact situation that he is now with the LA Chargers. I said this last week. This is not 1996 where when you're drafting quarterbacks from college, they have no idea what exactly is included in an NFL offense. A lot of these NFL offenses are based on college offenses and some of the similar schemes and attributes to that. And when you combine that with the fact that Justin Herbert was a top 10 pick in the draft, not only that, but this guy started for all 4 years when he was at the University of Oregon. He is known to have a very high football IQ. And to me, did he make some mistakes on Sunday? Absolutely. But no mistakes that would make you say, wow, this guy is just not ready at all to be the starting quarterback of the LA Chargers in the National Football League. And if you were all I'm going to say is this: no matter what happened in the game, you couldn't even have watched the game. If you were to tell any Charger fans when that game kicked off that the game would be going to overtime, Justin Herbert would play pretty well, and the team could have easily had a good chance to win that game, I think most Charger fans in that scenario are feeling pretty excited. And the narrative of the team changes directly. I think when most people, including me, watched the Los Angeles Chargers play in week 1, they kind of just said, oh, they have, some talent on defense. They even have some talent on offense. But this is a team that I'm never going to take seriously until they have more dynamic of a playmaker at quarterback. I think Tyrod Taylor is the perfect quarterback to have when your starter gets hurt. He's a guy that doesn't turn the ball over. He's a guy that isn't going to lose you a ton of games. I just think with this Chargers team, where exactly are they going with Tyrod Taylor as their quarterback? Once again, it's one thing for Anthony Lynn to use Tyrod as a backup. And we know that Anthony Lynn, while he was in Buffalo as an assistant coach, he was always a big fan of Tyrod Taylor and the work that he was able to do in Buffalo as a member of the Bills. And I just think that's fine as a backup. Just when you have a team with a bunch of talent, I just don't understand, what exactly you're doing here. There's no buzz around the Chargers when Tyrod Taylor is their starting quarterback. And it would be one thing if the other side of the argument was, oh, the kid just isn't ready at all. We don't trust Justin Herbert to even be, a guy that you could put out there and be, somewhat good. He could be capable of making big throws and being a quarterback in the NFL. But now you actually have game film to watch of this guy against not only any random team, but the defending Super Bowl champions. This guy was thrown into the fire with 5 minutes left in the game, or 5 minutes before the game started, against the defending Super Bowl champions, played as well as you could have asked, really showed that he has the upside. He has some good upside, and he has way more upside than Tyrod Taylor. And Anthony Lynn is just going to say right after the game that Tyrod Taylor is 100% our starter if he's 100% healthy. I'm sorry, I really just don't agree with that statement at all. And here's the other thing. If Justin Herbert plays as many games as possible, once again, I don't think anyone is picking the LA Chargers to win a Super Bowl. I just think there is absolutely no simulation to football. Justin Herbert would gain experience and know what exactly his physical limitations are if he played. And there's no simulation for that. He could see, all right, I made this tough throw. I tried to fit it in over Tyrann Mathieu, but obviously my arm can't do that. I can make those plays against teams like Oregon State and Washington State, but this is the NFL, and I'm going to learn from that. And I think when you have a rookie quarterback, that's one of the main goals you have for them, is he just needs to learn, he needs to limit the mistakes, and eventually the potential will pop. And I think on Sunday, Justin Herbert, that's a good word. He popped. If you have never seen Justin Herbert before and you watched a full game of the Los Angeles Chargers play on Sunday, I think you're saying to yourself, wow, this kid is pretty good. the Chargers got something here. And once again, it's not like the Chargers even won the game. They could have won. They were very close, but unfortunately, they couldn't get the job done. I really disagree with one decision Anthony Lynn made, and that's saying after the game that Tyrod Taylor is the starting quarterback if he's 100% healthy. The other huge decision I didn't agree with Anthony Lynn here is his in-game play calling. In overtime, on 4th and 1 from about midfield, you're really deciding to punt to Patrick Mahomes. Did anyone expect the Los Angeles Chargers defense to get a stop on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense when all they needed was to get a field goal to win the game? Punting to Patrick Mahomes on 4th and 1 when all he needs a field goal and you're at midfield is just malpractice. I really don't know how you could have done that because I think there's a clear formula out there to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And for the most part, Gus Bradley and his defense did a really good job of trying to execute that. The Chargers easily could have had a chance to win that game. But as soon as Anthony Lynn decided, I'm going to play conservative and run on 4th and 1, you just knew the game was over. And that's one thing that you really just cannot do when you're playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. I said it last week that I thought the Chiefs would score around 20 to 30 points in at least every single game this season. And their offense really did struggle on Sunday. Patrick Mahomes wasn't good in the first half, but unfortunately, the Chargers did a little too much to keep the Chiefs just alive in the game. And ultimately, in the end, Kansas City was able to take advantage of it. And that's the thing. When you're playing the Chiefs, you have to go for the kill as many times as you can. You even saw in the AFC divisional playoffs last year, the Houston Texans tried to go for the kill, and they thought they achieved it early. They were up 24-0, but ultimately that was not enough for them as Patrick Mahomes just came all the way back, and the Kansas City Chiefs ended up winning that game. And I think something similar kind of happened here. Mahomes ultimately turned a switch. Anthony Lynn was not aggressive enough, and the Chargers ended up falling short to the Chiefs. But to end this segment, I just wanted to say I'm really not a believer in Anthony Lynn. I wasn't a believer of him in the preseason. The Chargers were one of the more disappointing teams in football last year, and it's just year after year after year. I understand the injuries, but this team always has so much talent, and I never feel like they're able to get the job done. And especially if Tyrod Taylor is the starting quarterback for this team, I don't trust them to go anywhere. You saw how good the Raiders looked last night in the AFC West. We obviously know how good the Kansas City Chiefs are, and I think the wild card in the AFC is super wide open. There aren't really that many teams that stand out definitively and say to me, all right, in the AFC, this is definitely a playoff team. And the Chargers, I think, with Justin Herbert, could absolutely have a shot to be in the wild card because I think the Chargers coaches could put him in a position to succeed, especially when you consider the amount of talent around him.